to the Licensing and Gambling Act Subcommittee, 10 a.m, Monday, the 16th of August, 2021. This meeting is taking place via Teams remotely, so we shall be following the protocol for remote meetings. Basically, that means please keep your background noise to a minimum. I understand you're in a home and sometimes it's difficult, but if you could just try your best. Please turn your phones to silent. If you wish to speak, could you indicate using the hand function, or if you haven't got the hand function, you may use the chat function, but the chat function is only for that type of discussion of statement. It's not there to take part in the debate. So make that clear. Members of the public who have come, welcome. You are here, you may listen, but you may not take part in the meeting at all. It's just to view the meeting so that you can see what goes on your behalf. Okay, have I missed anything out now for that protocol? No. Okay then, Nadine, this meeting is recorded. So your further presence in the meeting tells me that you accede to that you give your permission to be recorded. So Nadine, would you please take the roll call, please? And I'll start the ball rolling. I am Suzanne Paddison, Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Whitelaw. So Councillor Miller.
There's a bit of feedback there, Nadine. I don't know what's happening. Screechy noise.
Screechy, no?
Okay, carry on. It's not over, it's not stopping anything yet.
Okay. Councillor Miller.
Present.
Yeah. Councillor Prethero.
Present, Nadine, thanks.
Yeah. Councillor Mason.
Yeah, present, Nadine.
And we got Councillor Purcell with us today.
Present.
So officers Neil Chappell.
Present, Nadine.
Peter Malloch.
Present.
Gavin White.
Present, Nadine.
Leah Morgan.
Present.
And we got Nick Bailey.
Present.
And we got applicants Giles Darby.
Yes, here.
Mark Dowdle.
Yeah, present.
And then we got residents at today's meeting, Chair.
Yes, quite a full committee today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so having done that, I shall go on to matters of interest, please. Do members of the committee have any interest to declare? Please indicate by raising your hand or putting in the chat function. Nadine, can you see anything? I can't.
No.
No. Okay, thank you for that. On that basis then, Councillor Misen, you are the reserve. So no members of the committee have expressed interest, so you may actually leave the meeting if you wish to. But you stay if you want.
I shall now toddle off and do my Welsh Government PCR test.
Okie dokie then, thank you for coming.
Hey.
Okay. Right, committee, we have 3 items of business today. You will have all received your papers. In addition, there was a late submission, which I did allow, the letter, and beg your pardon, I haven't got it printed up here. The letter, have you all received the additional letter? I did allow this in the business, in the idea that it would be more open to the public. Okay, so
Chair.
I will, yes, Chair?
Chair, sorry to bother you. Can I just, for confirmation, is the additional document you're talking about the letter from Andrew Nicholson?
That's the one.
Thank you, Chair.
Is that okay? Yep, yeah. Mr. Chappell did phone me and I saw no reason to deny that request. Okay, right then. We'll proceed with the agenda now then. We've done declarations of interest. We move on to item 3. Which is an application to vary a premises licence, the other place, pages 3 to 40. So, Mr. Chappell, I'll take your submissions first, and then we'll move on to other officers. Thank you, Mr. Chappell.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. Agenda item 3 is an application for the variation of a licence for the other place, 9 Anastero Road in Pontardawe. The licence holder and applicant being HB Pub Investments, represented today, I believe, by Mark Dowdle. Is that right?
It is, yeah, and Giles Derby.
Giles is here as well now, is it?
Yes, indeed, Neil, yeah.
Fantastic. Members, this application is essentially to do two things. Make alterations to the internal layout in respect of the lounge area of the premises, and to permit the sale of alcohol from a bar which is located in the external area. The application has been advertised in the prescribed manner, and as a result, representations have been received from the police, environmental health officer, legal regulatory officer, being the licensing officer, the local member for Pontardawe, and 7 residents living in the vicinity of the premises. All these representations, members, are attached at Appendix 1 to 11 of the report. Can I remind members that any representations made today must relate to one of the 4 licensing objectives. These are the prevention of crime and disorder, the prevention of public nuisance, public safety, and the protection of children from harm. Representations that do not relate to one of these licensing objectives cannot be taken into consideration. Members are also reminded that when considering an application for a variation of a licence, representations and any proposed conditions must relate to the application only. So in this case, we are concentrating only on the proposed interior alterations to the premises and to the sale of alcohol from the outside bar area. The existing licence permits alcohol to be consumed in the external areas in line with the licensing hours. So those hours that are already attached to the existing licence. So that is 11 p.m. Sunday to Thursday and 1 a.m. Friday and Saturday. In addition, whilst the existing licence only permits live and recording music indoors, the premises is permitted to offer live music and recorded music in the external areas by the exemptions offered by the Live Music Act 2012 and the Licensing Act Deregulation of Entertainment Order 2013. What this in effect does is allow any licensed premises which has on sales to have music on the premises, even if they're not permitted to do so, for less than 500 people up until 11 o'clock at night. These permissions do not form part of this application, and members are therefore reminded of the need to be mindful that representations and any proposed conditions remain relevant to the application. Chair, the recommendation today is that members determine this application after hearing all submissions.
Thank you, Mr. Chappell. Okay, the prescribed protocol gives a list of people that we go to now. The next set of people on the list is the applicant or the applicant's representative. So I shall therefore ask the applicant's representative to make any submissions they've come to make now.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning to you.
My name is Giles Derby. I'm one of the shareholders in pub company HD Pub Investments Limited. We have 19 sites across South Wales, including some of you may know the Aubrey Arms at Ystrad, the Old Gleis in Gleis, the Red Lion in Llangadog, and the Torbay Inn in Llandilo. So we have numerous sites in your area, although not your specific Neath Port Talbot area. We acquired the other place in November last year. And obviously, we've had to deal with the ravages of the COVID pandemic. And when we were able to reopen in April this year, originally we were only able to open outside, you may recall. As a consequence of that, we built an outside bar. There's a large pub beer garden at the other place. We built an outside bar in order to enable us to service the outside requirements of the Welsh Government. There's obviously historic issues between residents, some residents and the pub itself, which are historic, and issues were raised fairly quickly by members of the public relating to noise in particular. So we've worked with Mr. Mallock especially closely, and also the South Wales Police, plus Environmental Health, to try to come up with a set of guidelines that will enable us to fulfil the outside use of the bar, and also meet the EHO noise issues that surround the outside of the pub. It's very easy for someone to say, well, you can go inside now, but it's not as simple as that. The reality of life is that lots of members of the public are still hesitant to go put themselves into crowded spaces. We find that across all of our sites. And so we have worked hard in all of our sites to improve our outside business operations. So for example, at the other place, we have an outside marquee so that people can be outside and sheltered from inclement weather. We also have an outside marquee at the Aubrey Arms in Ystrad. We have an outside marquee at the old Gleis. And the whole reason is because people want to be outside. It's very clear to us that the pandemic has changed people's habits considerably. And so there is a need to service the outside business. It's now become an al fresco trade. And so our request to be able to have an outside bar is still, in our opinion, as a business matter, an important element of what we do, even though at the moment we are allowed to be inside. One reads that there's still a possibility later this year there may be another lockdown, the infections are still running at very high levels. And so our submission is very simply that even though we can now go inside, as a business matter, we still need the ability to be outside and to have an outside bar to support our business.
Okay, thank you very much. In trying to follow the protocol directly, obviously I was reading down the list of who should be speaking first. The second paragraph underneath that actually goes on to the questions. So do members of the committee have any questions for Neil Chappell first, after what he said? I see none. And do any members of the committee have any questions for the agent at this time? This won't be the only opportunity, but I'm just asking you if you have any questions. I see none at this time. So we'll move on to any statutory body or interested party that would be interested in this application. So I'll go to Peter Malloch as the licensing authority. Peter, do you have anything you wish to add or say at this time?
No, nothing additional this time. Perhaps I'll come on to my sort of representation later on in the meeting.
Yeah, that's okay. Any questions? Oh, well, he hasn't said anything, so there's no questions. So, and then we come to objectors. So, first of all, I would like to come to the local member because I will speak to residents if any have registered to speak later. So, Councillor Lynette Purcell, you are the local member for the ward in which this premises sits. So please say what you have come to say.
Thank you very much indeed. First of all, after we'd overcome the technical issues and I could actually access the papers last night, I'm extremely grateful to the police licensing officer, the environmental health officers and the council's legal regulation officers for their very detailed reports, and also across the board for articulating so many of the concerns that I myself have as a local councillor. They are unanimous in that they're all basically saying the same thing. Also, I picked up the fact that they are all saying that there are still issues that are unresolved. Now, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting the applicant. I was invited, unfortunately, very short notice to meet with them at the other place, and I wasn't able to attend because my diary was constricted. But I didn't realise until they spoke a few minutes ago how experienced they were, that they are running 19 other sites. And this actually surprises me because if they are that experienced, I would not have expected this to be coming to your committee with some issues still unresolved. However, that is not on my list of notes that I wanted to make. I didn't realise that until the applicant spoke himself. So when this application was first submitted, COVID restrictions were in force. The police make the valid point, however, in their report that this is no longer relevant, but that the promotion of statutory objectives is. I can hear what the applicant's saying, that people want to be outside, and I am totally inexperienced when it comes to licensing committee. I've only been in front of you twice before, and therefore I don't know anything about this, but I do know that you're supposed as a committee to be looking at the statutory objectives, and the one I'm most concerned about is preventing public nuisance. So I think from that point of view, and I mean, obviously it's up to the committee, that COVID is not actually relevant to the statutory objectives, but I'll be guided on that by you later on. Okay, so what am I concerned about with preventing public nuisance? All the officers in their reports confirm that there have been repeated complaints about noise emanating from this premises, not just the historic issues that the applicant refers to, but ever since, to be quite honest. To quote police, this is the other concern, there is no condition proposed which addresses the licensing objective of the protection of public nuisance by minimising noise. So that concerns me. And there's no mention of whether the outside area will be being used after the bar closes, the outside bar, at whatever time that may be. Without any condition being imposed, and without this issue being tackled, we must assume the outside bar area will be used until 1 AM at weekends and 11:30 on Sunday to Thursday. Now, going back to what the applicant said, that he is expecting more and more people to be using the outside area, and he's also raised the spectre of a further lockdown, but I don't know where he's got that information from, because so that's the first I've heard of it, but who knows? If he is saying that he's assuming, with his experience in running these 19 sites, that people are going to want more and more and more to use outside area, then on behalf of the local residents, and in capital letters, I must just say, help, seriously help. If you look at the diagram on page 14, this bar is totally surrounded in extremely close proximity, like on the other side of a very narrow road, by residential premises. In the appendices, the residents, I can hear background noise and I'm hearing impaired. Does anybody know where that's coming from?
Yes, if everybody could turn their microphones off, except for Councillor Purcell, please. I'll even do that myself.
I'll just stop speaking until we can deal with that. Yeah, it's just, it's difficult enough as it is anyway, but yeah, okay, where was I up to? Yeah, if the committee looks at the diagram on page 14, you will see that the bar is totally surrounded in very, very close proximity by residential premises. The road on the other side of the other place it's narrow, so the nearest residents are feet away from this outside bar area. In the appendices, the residents who have responded tell you quite clearly how the premises already impacts on them. I was particularly interested in the quote from the 3-year-old who is trying to sleep. And the mother actually quotes the, I can't think this morning, I've come back from holiday and my brain, the Convention of Human Rights. Anyway, that one, anyway, the 3-year-old, yeah. God, I'm doing well this morning. Anyway, getting back to the...
You're fine, Councillor, carry on.
Oh, God, right. Can I go back on holiday? Getting back to the absolutely critical point. On behalf of the residents, and having read everything that's been said by the officers, I think what I'm concerned about going forward from here, whatever the committee decides, is that this has to all be based on trust. For example, the police licensing officer states that he is always available to advise before applications are submitted to prevent any future problems, and yet he states that no advice was sought. That surprises me if these people have these 19 other sites and are very experienced. I'm also aware from a trust point of view, as the local councillor, I've been made very aware that despite not being licensed to do so, the outside bar has been functioning and has been advertised as functioning on Facebook, despite myself and other residents drawing this to the attention of council officers and officers having met with the proprietors to advise them. That does not inspire confidence in me or on my behalf, on behalf of the residents. If this has been going on prior to this licensing application having been permitted, then it destroys an element of trust. Residents have also drawn my attention to the fact that a large TV sound system is already installed in the outside area, despite the licensing application not yet having been determined, with a 3-year-old child trying to sleep directly opposite. On her behalf, and on behalf of the elderly residents who have lived there for many, many years, from the days when this was the Royal British Legion, which, as you can imagine, presented none of the above problems, I am pleading with the committee to support the police licensing officer in particular's proposal that conditions be added controlling to the use of the outside area so that these elderly residents, I know we have one gentleman with dementia a couple of doors away, I know we have the 3-year-old directly opposite. This is not appropriate for this particular area, for those poor people, some of whom are working shifts, trying to sleep. So all I can do is just ask you to bear that in mind. Thank you very much for your tolerance. Can anybody remember the Universal Convention on Human? I don't know. I'll look it up, but thank you very much for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Nadine, do we have any registered speakers other than from the public? I mean, no?
No. Is there anyone else, Neil?
Nobody has applied to speak.
Yeah. So Chair, all the persons in attendance will obviously have the opportunity to address committee, and I'm just looking through the list.
Got it.
Yeah, there are a couple of residents, I believe, in the meeting who are able to speak. Chair, they've put representations in.
Okay. I will call on the resident. Do you know their names, Mr. Chapel? And then I'll come back to you because you need to ask some questions.
Yes, I'd like to ask questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to run through all the people who wish to speak, and then we'll go through the questions. So, what are the names of the people that have sent in the written submissions?
Nadine, can you see?
Yeah, so we've got is it Robert Mellon?
Robert Mellon, then we'll start with you. Would you like to address committee with your thoughts, please? If you wish to, you do not have to. I'm not forcing you to. No. Anybody else?
Are you on, Robert Mellon, you on mute?
Yeah. Can you turn your microphone? That's it.
There we are.
There we are. We've got you now, Mr. Mellon. Would you please say what you'd like to address committee? Are you still muted? Can you help him, Nadine? He seems to be muted.
I'm trying to look. Yeah.
We're just trying to sort out the sound. I don't know if you can hear me, Mr. Mellon.
Can you hear us?
Yes, he can hear, but we can't hear him.
I know.
Could we go on to any other speakers and then maybe come back?
Madam Chair, is it possible? I've got 3 quick points to make about.
No, I'll come back to you. You've addressed committee, and there will be opportunity for further submissions. But I just want to go to all the speakers to let them have their say, and then we go to questions. So can we get Mr. McKellen? No.
No, I don't know what's the matter. If you want to go on to the next person, is that okay?
Yes, I will, and I'll come back to the next person is Nadine.
I'm just trying to find the name. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Go off on here. Is there Thomas on here?
Thomas, yes, as a guest. Yep. Sorry, is that the surname? Yep. Thomas?
Thomas Pugh.
Oh, Thomas Pugh, right. Mr. Pugh, would you like to say what you have to say to a committee? Well, Nick Bailey has suggested unplugging your headset. Mr. Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. McKellar, yes, there we are. Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you. So please address committee.
Over the last 40 years that I've lived here, I moved here and it's been brought forward that some of the residents knew that there was a pub there. Okay. But in the last 40 years I've been here, it was the Royal British Legion. It was a very small community venue. And the change that has come from the new premises has caused lots of trouble going back since it opened as a public house. The new owners have been a little bit on our side, I've got to say that, but nevertheless, I don't feel that there should be an outside bar at any time. They're working hard inside to create a noise-free environment, which I'm happy with. But when you see late at night what we have to put up with here from these venues, it's unbelievable. The parking issues, because they're using their external car park as a venue, we are having problems with parking issues. We've had double lines put there, but there's nobody ever been booked on them.
Mr. Pugh, I will have to just interject a little.
Yes, carry on.
The application today is for changes to the inside of the venue and possibly to agree a bar in the outside. We cannot actually take into account parking.
Okay, no problem.
It's not part of the application.
Yeah, okay. But saying that, the application causes that problem for outside.
Well, I will. Yes. I don't like to contradict, but
yeah, okay.
They've already got an outside area which is licensed for the consumption of alcohol. The application today is to put a bar in that area rather than have a licensed area.
Yeah.
So if you could stick to that, that'd be
great. My view is that having a bar on the outside, when people are in bed sleeping, you can hear more noise.
Okay.
And while that would be outside till 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe they'll never use it for 1 o'clock, but it isn't the point. If you get a license for 1 o'clock, you are able to use it till 1 o'clock. I don't think any bar outside should be after 10:30.
Okay.
Especially in a residential area like this is, it's about 30 feet to the nearest home.
Okay.
That's that's a very close proximity to this. And if as I am a shift worker, 12-hour shifts, coming home, you've already got the noise of the deliveries, etc. People coming and going at any time of day, which I have to put up with as a shift worker, and that's very unfortunate. It's unfortunate for me, but other people who work days regular, possibly bakers get up at 3 in the morning. How is he going to have any sleep when a pub is open till 1 o'clock?
Okay.
So
thank you.
I disagree with an outside bar being allowed any extra time from 10:30.
Right.
And
okay.
It's difficult to get rid of these people after it closes as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pugh. Thank you very much for your submission there. I think we're going to try Mr. McKellen then again. Could you lower your hand? I'll do it. Mr. Kellen? No, we're still having problems. We can't hear you.
I don't know if you want to maybe leave the meeting, then try and come back in. I don't know if that
How
might
long
be
will
any
that
help.
take, Nadine? Is there another speaker we could do?
No, there's only
okay.
the two.
We'll try that then quickly. Leave the meeting and re-enter the meeting, and we'll see if we can hear Mr. McKellen.
He's left now, so maybe he'll,
Yes, he'll rejoin now shortly.
yeah.
This is just one of the bugbears of these types of meetings. We are at the mercy of electronics. If he isn't able to come back, then we do have the submissions that they have put in, and they are in the bundle. So we will be able to hear, have his
Oh, no.
views.
He's coming back in now, so hopefully it'll
Let's
work.
just hope, yes, okay.
Can you hear us now? Can you speak? See if we can hear you.
Mr. McKellen?
No.
What I will say to you, Mr. McKellen, is just as you were out of the meeting, I was addressing the committee. We do have your submission, so it's not that you have not had an input into the committee. We still have the written submissions. It would have been wonderful to hear you in person. Mr. Chappell, would you like to say something?
Yeah, Chair, we had something similar at a previous meeting, and on that occasion we were able to phone the resident, as it was then, and they spoke via our mobile phone into the machine. Perhaps we can do something
Nadine,
similar.
will you see if you can try that?
If you can send me the telephone number, Nadine, I believe you have it.
There, I've got it. I'll email it to you now.
Me that. I'll ring.
Lovely. Thank you, Mr. Chappell. Yeah, we did do that before.
No, I'll do that now.
Just have to be patient in the committee while we try this. Just takes a few more minutes. I would like to explore every possible way of getting the submission in verbally, if we can.
No, that's done. So
have you
just
emailed
sent
it to me,
just sent it to you, Neil. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chappell was wonderful in the other committee. Quite right. I think it was from a car then, wasn't it?
Whilst we're waiting, Madam Chair, I've discovered what it was I was trying to say before. It's the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, yeah, no probs. Just have to be a little patient just to see if we can. He's actually speaking to him, so.
I'm taking myself off mute, so you should now be able to speak to members.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
Oh yes, we can hear you now. Good.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you go ahead and address committee.
Yeah. Well, I'm against the application for the outside bar. Firstly, because the problems of noise are not historic whatsoever. These are big ongoing problems. I made several complaints only recently. Antisocial behaviour, people out in the street urinating in the evenings. These are all coming from the other place. The noise is horrendous, and this has been going on for years. This is not historic. It hasn't improved since the new owners have taken over. Indeed, it's been worse. The outside, the live music is now Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I have no faith that this, the opening of the outside bar will, improve matters in any way. I can't believe that they are using COVID to try and justify this. As was said, COVID should have nothing to do with the planning application. So I don't know, that should come into it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just basically it's a huge concern.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's always nice to hear from the residents directly to the committee. And as a council, we do try and include residents. So thank you very much for that.
Cheers, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chappell. Come to the rescue again. Okay, I'm going to go back. The other representative body that could be questioned here is environmental health, and we do have the environmental health officer here, Leah Morgan. Leah, could you please address committee and tell us of what from your perspective, what is happening at this location?
Of course, Chair. Environmental Health have received several complaints about the other place, and most noticeably since COVID, most of the complaints have related to loud noise from patrons and music in the beer garden. Following receipt of the application that's being discussed today, Environmental Health raised objections on the ground of inadequate information to demonstrate that the licensing objective of the prevention of public nuisance could be achieved. At the request of the applicant, Environmental Health, my colleague Rachel Matthews attended a meeting with the premises to discuss how they could address our concerns. And following that, a noise management plan was submitted. I've reviewed the document and I'm not satisfied that the proposed controls are sufficient to mitigate the impact of noise on surrounding residential properties. A revised document has been submitted this morning, but I'm still of the opinion that it doesn't demonstrate robust controls to prevent noise nuisance. It is worth noting that on the 31st of July, after the meeting with Environmental Health, another Environmental Health officer witnessed very loud music from a live band within the premises that he could hear in Lidl and the bypass car parks from within his car. It was also audible at the complainant's property. Again, loud music was witnessed this weekend by another Environmental Health officer that was audible at the other end of the street, and he has sent across videos in which the lyrics of the songs are clearly audible. Of particular note to this application and the Environmental Health Officer's comments from the 31st of July in relation to the noise after the band finished. He reported that following the band, a number of patrons then came out into the beer garden, and the noise from the patrons in the beer garden increased considerably and was very loud at the complainant's premises as people were spilling outside. I think this demonstrates that the current controls are insufficient, and I do not think the noise management plan offers up any additional controls that could control the noise from the outside areas. I think it relies heavily on staff monitoring at a number of locations, and I do not think the applicant has really thought through the practicalities of how their staff are going to monitor people coming in and out of the premises, people in the beer garden, people inside. I think that the practicalities of that haven't actually been thought through. And finally, I think it's worth noting that we are considering making an application to review the premises license at this premises because of the noise issues that we are witnessing and experiencing from the music and patron noise.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Morgan. You are indeed talking about something that is already licensed, aren't you?
Well, I think yes, but
as we are today, this is already. I would like. Yeah, and I'm going to come to questions later. So, but I'm just going to stop at the submissions at the moment, and then because I need to go right back to the beginning to Neil Chappell, who wished to ask a question. Then we've heard the applicant, we've heard the agent, we've heard local councillor, we've heard all the licensing authorities that wish to speak. Now I need to go back to Mr. Chappell, who wishes to ask questions.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry to interrupt. Has Nick Bailey had an opportunity to speak yet from the South Wales Police?
Oh, I beg your pardon, Nick. I'm so sorry, Nick. And you don't normally come here, and on the day you have, I overlook you. I do apologise. Nick Bailey, then, from the police, would you please address committee, and then we'll go to questions.
Madam Chair. Thank you for that. Firstly, can I apologise for my interruption, as I'm sure I will have bouts of coughing during this. That's and okay. If you see me chucking sweets in my mouth, it isn't that, it's throat lozenges. However, no following the submission of the application to vary the premises licence for the other place, which covers two separate areas, namely change to the internal layout of the premises, and secondly, an application to licence an outside bar in an area of what is regarded as a beer garden. On the 5th of July, I submitted a response that's contained within the committee report, in which I indicated there were no objections to observation to the internal changes. However, there were, and it contained a number of representations to the new bar and outside area, which have also drawn a number of comments from local residents. As I believe everyone's had the opportunity to read this document and my submission, my current position, I've not been able to read it without coughing. Unless there is a specific request, I've no intention of repeating that.
Oh, it is quite a lengthy submission. I do understand that, Mr. Bailey.
Following submission of this response, a meeting was arranged at the premises involving a number of the local, number of responsible authorities and the owners and management team of the premises, which on my part was broad agreement to most of the conditions which I proposed, leading to an email being received on the 21st of July from the applicant agreeing to all police representations, with the exceptions of points 7 and 8, for which I'd requested a terminal hour to be imposed on the use of the outside area.
Yeah.
I note that the latest management plans circulated this morning suggest that the outside bar will now close at 2100 hours, which is earlier than the 2200 hours, which was agreed in the email dated 21st of July. So my first question was, can we just confirm which time the applicant actually intends to close the outside area?
Okay.
Secondly, having revisited the application and the scope of what is being applied for, as identified very clearly by Mr. Chappell earlier in his explanation of this process, I find myself having to reconsider this application as a responsible authority, very much more so than as a local resident, and therefore I do not have any first-hand understanding of how the operation of this premises impacts on them, and this is not my role in this process. This is limited to how the granting of this licence for an outside bar could or will impact on the licensing objectives.
Correct.
I believe within my remit as representative or as the responsible authority representing the police, dealing primarily with crime and disorder, the scope of possible conditions that I can request is therefore limited solely to what is now being applied for, which is the licensing of a new outside area, and that any anticipated or experienced problems from the use of a larger outside area as a result of a new outside bar fall within the remit of other responsible authorities, such as outlined by environmental health, and I therefore defer to them in relation to this outside area. As a result of revisiting this, solely concentrating on what is actually being applied for, I am at this point happy to withdraw points 7 and 8, as I feel that to limit the use of an area that is already lawfully in use and is not part of this application would not be within my current remit. I would therefore ask that clarification of the terminal hour for the outside bar is received, and that once this is done, I'm happy for this application to proceed as amended, and that should any further issues of outside noise or antisocial behaviour become apparent or continue, that there is scope within the Licensing Act for this to be dealt with by way of review. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and for struggling through, even though you are unwell. So thank you very much, Mr. Bailey, and for the clarification of why you are willing to withdraw 7 and 8. I'm going to come to questions, so we'll deal with the terminal hour when we come to questions. So I'm going to start the questions now and go back to Neil Chappell. Mr. Chappell, do you have any questions of the first speaker other than you? Yeah, the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. I have questions of everyone who's spoken so far, if that's okay.
Lovely. Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to start. Can I just, before I ask the question, can I just reiterate the fact that this is an application for the variation of a license?
Yeah.
We are only looking at the internal changes to the premises, the internal layout, which I don't believe anybody has any objections to anyway.
No.
And the erection of this outside bar area. So what they want to do is sell alcohol from the external area as well as the internal area. We're not looking here at any of their existing permissions. That can't be looked at as part of this process. It can be done as part of a review, And it could be done as if this was a new application. But as this is a variation, we are only concerned with the parts of the application they've actually applied for. So with that in mind, if I go back to the applicant first, please. There's been some mention of a noise management plan that's come through this morning from the applicant. There were several points in there, and I just want to address a few of them. They have stated that the outside bar will close at 9 o'clock. Can I just ask the applicant, is that accurate? Because it was 10:30 originally in your application. Have you now reduced that to 9 o'clock?
Yeah, Mr. Chappell, Mark Dowdall is here. Mark is the manager directly responsible for implementing policies at the site. There's a couple of issues. Yes, the answer to your question is yes, 9 o'clock. Given some of the comments we've seen from local residents, we regard ourselves as a socially responsible company. And we think 9 o'clock, we brought the closing time forward to 9 o'clock out of respect for some of the comments from the residents. So that's point number one. Point number two is that I will agree with the gentleman that just spoke. We have had live music on a Friday night. There will no longer be live music on a Friday night. Again, in an attempt to be socially responsible. And thirdly, we have no issue. Recommendations made by the South Wales Police, we have no issues with any points that have been made.
Thank you. Mr. Dowdall, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, morning all. Yeah, with the 9 o'clock, we've brought that forward. I've spoken to quite a few of the residents, and 9 o'clock is a fair time. With regards to the TV, we've put in to keep the TV on till 10:30. That's just because we've got sporting events, and that would just cover that. But there'll be no volume on the TV. It'll just be pictures.
Oh, right. Okay.
Like yeah, there won't be any volume.
Okay, so we go back to Mr. Chappell. Are you happy with the responses you've had?
Yes, Chair, I've got more questions.
Yeah, you carry on with the questions.
Okay, so my understanding now then is that this premises has a license on until 11 o'clock during the week, Friday and Saturday until 1 o'clock. So the customers can remain in the beer garden at present until 1 a.m. in the morning. That is not up for debate as part of this application. We're only looking at the outside bar area. That will now close at 9 o'clock, and you will be happy for a condition to be attached to the license that bar will effectively close at 9 o'clock. But obviously, the customers will still be able to stay outside in accordance with the existing license. They would just have to purchase their alcohol from within the premises.
Correct.
Okay. Great. Secondly, on your management plan, you've mentioned live music will finish at 9 o'clock, and this is in the outside area. Obviously, like that isn't part of your application at the moment. Your application is for the outside bar. So is this a condition that you are offering to have attached to your license rather than something that would be imposed upon your license? Because obviously this isn't part of your application as it currently stands. So I think you've just clarified that you're not going to have music on a Friday. Again, that can't be conditioned as part of this process unless it's something that you specifically request.
Just to be clear, Mr. Chappell, there are occasional music festivals in Pontardawe. There's one once a year that I think everyone is aware of. So on that particular weekend, we would have Friday night music, but we have no intention as a regular trade matter to have live music on a Friday evening going forward.
Okay.
And the only time, in fact, the only time that there would be outside live music, Mark, you please correct me if I'm wrong, is likely to be on a because it's not socially responsible to have live music outside on a Saturday night. The only time live music would be outside would be a Sunday afternoon, and that is between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, just so the committee's aware, we've actually brought forward the time of our start of live music. So our live music starts at 8 and will be off by 10:30 at the maximum when we're playing inside.
So, Mr. Chappell, the answer to your question is yes, we are offering that. Yes.
Okay. As in my introduction, I mentioned about the Live Music Act and the Licensing Act Deregulation of Entertainment Order. The reason I mentioned that in my opening introduction is because all premises by default are allowed to have live music and recorded music at their premises until 11 o'clock at night, with as long as there's less than 500 people on the premises. Any conditions, members, that were put onto a license regulating live and recorded music would have no effect at this process. So if you attached a condition now, say no live music outside, then it would have no effect. The only way that you could impose a condition that was effective is after a review of the license. And we're not in a review situation here today, we're in a variation application. So it would be pointless putting any conditions on the license in relation to live and recorded music, unless they were going to have events over 500 people.
Mr. Chappell, just for clarification then, so the committee understand, the applicants are willing to self-impose. We do not have to, or it's pointless to put a condition on, but the applicants have come forward with this to sort of try and help the residents coexist with their premises. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're putting a condition on, even if it's volunteered at this stage, would have no effect on the music.
Okay, but thank you for clarifying.
That would only come about as part of a review application.
Right.
Okay.
Any further questions?
I do, yes, thank you, Chair. There was then the mention of monitoring around the premises. I know Environmental Health have brought this up as well. And you've mentioned the manager staff and door staff will monitor noise sensitive areas. Can you just explain to me how the monitoring relates to the bar being erected? Because remember, this application is only for the bar outside. So how does your monitoring, how is that connected to the bar being outside, and how frequent will that monitoring be? And I'm assuming now that the bar will close at 9, any monitoring will only go until 9 o'clock, unless you're offering a condition for something that's not a part of your application.
Mark, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. Basically, we monitor the customer noise, or the output of the customer's noise, during bar service, and any unruly customers or any loud noise, we'd quell. We'd ask to keep quiet. It's not rocket science. It's if we do see a problem there, we'll deal with it.
Okay, perhaps I'll address that when I come on to the Environmental Health Officer as well, because there was discussion about monitoring. So perhaps we'll come back to that and see if we can find a properly worded condition if it's necessary. And then you've also got on your noise management plan signage in the beer garden asking people to keep their noise down. I think that's a great idea. So you're happy to have a condition attached to that saying that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. And then the other one, which again is outside your licensing application, is no entry or re-entry after 11 o'clock. So absolutely. Your bar is now closing at 9 o'clock. Right. There is no requirement on you to have a condition for 11 o'clock. But again, it's something I think that you're happy to have, and you're offering that as a condition of your license.
What we've noticed over the last couple of weeks, because we are quite a popular venue, we're getting a lot of people that are drinking elsewhere, coming back to us, and that's where we're getting the problems. Right. So to stop that, no re-entry after 11 o'clock.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for that, Chair. Is it possible I can go on and speak to some of the other?
Yes, I think if you give questions to anybody that's spoken so far, and then we'll move on to other people to question.
Okay, I'll go on to Mr. Pugh first then. A couple of notes I made there was The parking issues, which you quite rightly pointed out, Chair, are not relevant to this application. They do not form part of the licensing objectives, so they should not be taken into consideration. There was talk by Mr. Pugh about noise until 1 AM, and people shouldn't be out there until that time. Again, this is a matter for a review of a license. It can't be considered as part of this application. This application is for a bar outside, which is until 9 o'clock. So I think my question now to Mr. Pugh, in light of that information and the bar closing at 9, is there still an objection from you in relation to this outside bar?
No, sorry, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Pugh.
Right. No, there's not an objection. I've spoken to Mark on a number of occasions, and he's been very open with what he's suggesting. And like he said himself, if they can reduce the noise so people aren't impacted by it, then it's a good thing. You know, the venue, like you say, the venue's been there a long time. And if these people can change it so it's an environment for everybody to get on with, that can only be good news. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pugh. Yeah.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chappell?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Chair. And then the other gentleman who spoke was Mr. Mellon.
Yeah.
And again, it was issues with noise going on for years, live music Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I know I keep saying the same thing, but they are not part of this application. It is only for a bar area outside. So I assume it's the same question really to Mr. Mellon. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to answer us because we can't hear him. But now that the bar is going to be closing at 9, and if we can just concentrate on that part of the application, do you still have your objections to it? I understand that you're having other issues, but they have to be dealt with outside of this hearing.
On this occasion, I don't know whether he's actually able to type anything in. If he could just say yes or no, I would allow that. Normally, I wouldn't allow chat, but if he's able to, I'm not sure if he is able to.
Okay, so he said yes. I'd still
yes, I'd still object. So we have it clear from Mr. McKellen that the offerings from the applicant don't really cut anything with him personally. So thank you for that. Thank you for answering.
Thank you. And then if I can come on to the Environmental Health Officer, please. I understand that there is ongoing work with the premises and with environmental health, and it's all in relation to noise, in particular with live and recorded music, but also from patron noise from the beer garden. Having heard what I've said numerous times now about this application being really restricted to the bar outside and the internal structural changes, do you have any conditions that you would think should be attached to this license which are specific to the bar closing at 9 o'clock?
Yeah, I think obviously what I didn't actually make clear is my concerns relate to the fact that I think this application will increase the usage of the outside area, which is already causing us some problems. So that's how it relates to this application, and perhaps I didn't make that clear in my representation. I don't currently think we have enough information in the noise management plan to satisfy me that the controls are in place. I'm pleased to hear that there is a proposal to close the bar at 9 o'clock, because I think that will help the situation. I think I would be minded to recommend that you condition for a revised noise management plan. I think we need to firm that document up. I don't think it's currently adequate. And if you're minded to approve the application, I think it needs a condition for a noise management plan, and that's something that we can work with the applicant to sort of firm up and make it clear, because at the moment I just don't feel that what is proposed is really enforceable by us and will provide us with the controls we need to get the noise under control from the premises.
Yeah, and I think I understand the fact that you'd like a noise management plan for the premises because you are experiencing issues. There are complaints coming in. But it appears that these complaints generally relate to live and recorded music in particular, which obviously we can't condition as a part of this application, and patron noise from the beer garden after the bar now closes at 9 o'clock. So I'm just thinking, from a noise management plan point of view, is there any specific conditions that you would want in that noise management plan that purely relate to the bar and only until 9 p.m. So I think you mentioned sort of monitoring, and they were happy to do that, but that monitoring effectively for this application would only be until 9 o'clock. That's the only thing that's actually changing.
Yeah. The monitoring I would want to discuss further with the applicant, because I'm not clear. I mean, there's mention of a noise app, and we need to know how you're going to use that. They're not always reliable, and our preference would be, can you hear it outside the boundary of the premises? So it's difficult for me to recommend conditions in that way, because I need a clearer, this is the problem, I don't have the information at this stage to recommend conditions for you, because and this is why normally we'd want the noise management plan firmed up before, so we could pick out elements that we think should be conditioned, but I don't have that information to recommend that for you at the moment, I don't think.
Okay. But you accept, obviously, that the application for the outside bar's been scaled back quite considerably now. Yeah, so that closing at 9 o'clock is not going to have the impact that it would have had, I don't think, if the bar was open until 10:30, closing at 11.
I still think it has the potential to increase the use of the outside area. I think people are there, they're going to, they go to the outside bar till 9. They're not going to then leave the outside area. They're going to just start buying drinks indoors. So I think we have to acknowledge that bar being outside is going to increase the outside use of the premises.
Okay. All right. Obviously, the preference would be from a licensing point of view, and for making sure that we've got a license that's easy to understand, is to have simple conditions, clear conditions attached to the license, rather than referring to another document with conditions in. And that'll obviously be now for members to look at when they determine the application. Thank you for that. And then just finally, onto the police licensing officer, and it was just simply to agree that the points 7 and 8 that we refer to are withdrawn. Obviously, they would be attaching conditions to a license. The terminal hour for the use of that beer garden is not part of this application. So I accept the fact that they've been withdrawn. And the other conditions that were proposed in the police representation, I understand they have been accepted by the applicant. So you've got the CCTV conditions, the Challenge 25 conditions. They've been agreed. Again, they don't really form part of this application, but if they've been proposed and accepted by the applicant, then that's fine. So that's it for me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chappell. I'm going to go now to any questions by the applicant to any member, any speaker that has spoken to address committee now. So do you have anything further that you wish to question?
My only question is to the EHO, and to simply say that we're very happy to spend time, whatever time you need to spend with us, to put in place an acceptable noise management plan. We understand the point. We understand there's a social responsibility on our business. I would only simply say that, can you all please also, I'm sure you will acknowledge that the issues with COVID make it unbelievably difficult to get this right. And I see the councillor shaking her head. I don't know why you're shaking your head. COVID is a huge problem for everybody, and we're trying our very best to manage our business in a socially responsible manner, given the issues we're dealing with more generally. So EHO, we're very happy to work with you, and perhaps off-site, we can speak to you separately about sitting down with you and addressing any further issues you may have.
Okay, that's very good of you. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to move on.
Sorry, I can see Peter's got his hand up.
Yeah, I'm coming up to interested regulatory authorities to ask questions now. So you're next on the list, Peter. So go ahead. Do you have any questions for anybody that's spoken this morning?
Not necessarily questions. I was just wondering, I haven't had an opportunity to address the committee with regards to my representation yet. I was just wondering, you know, do you want me to do that now, or wait until the questions are over?
At the beginning, but yes, you can do that now.
Yeah, a lot of what I was going to say has already been sort of addressed. And I think what South Wales Police have said, the Environmental Health and Neil has just sort of gone through now. But the main points in my representation were in regard to the operating schedule and the use of the external bar. And I required just some further information on how that will be managed. The questions I really raised were focused on the high standards of control that should be implemented to minimise any potential public nuisance that may arise from the operation of a bar, particularly as it's situated in a residential area. Now, following the consultation and the mediation that was done with all the responsible authorities and the applicant, the applicant did submit a noise management plan, which I know has been referred to many times today already. But I was just going to sort of address some of the points there. Obviously, with the bar closing at 9 p.m, that's fair and seems positive. Just with regards to manager, staff and door supervisors monitoring Annisha Dairy Road and Francis Street every hour, and this will be recorded by a noise app. I think that generally refers to live and recorded music. What was it being proposed that monitoring of the outside area in Annisha and Francis Street will also be done when there isn't any music, so when the bar is open?
So that's a direct question then to the applicant. Yeah.
That was just one point that I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, can I ask that question? I'll come back to you. So the question has been asked, will the monitoring of noise take place even when the bar isn't open? I think, to be honest with you, we're only looking at the application for the bar. So
the question is that if music isn't being played, will these checks every hour take place when the bar is actually open? So when the outside bar is
music,
open, yeah. And what time will them checks take place from?
Thank you. Okay, that's the question. If it's not, music is not being played, will you still monitor the noise up to 9 p.m?
Mr. Malik, I've never been asked that question ever before in any of our other pubs.
All right.
Simply, the noise you're talking about is people noise. It's conversation. It's just general day to day. What happens when crowds of people gather together? Clearly, Mr. Dowd has already said, if anybody's being unruly or carrying on in a I can only call it a yobbish manner, then we address it and we ask them to leave. So I've never ever come across a request to monitor the noise of people talking. I don't see why we should start now.
Okay.
No, it wasn't a request. It was just a point that was made in the noise management plan. It was just for clarification on what is going to be expected.
Right. Okay. So it's the music that will be monitored by the app, not the level of people talking, ordering a drink at the bar.
And I think in fairness, from what the applicant and the reliever has agreed, that they will look at working at their noise management plan now to address these issues anyway.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of cooperation so far. Yeah. Mr. Malloch, anything else? Anything further?
One point, for everybody's benefit. So on a smartphone, you can download a decibel management meter system.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm sure you're aware of it, Mr. Malik, and Mr. Chaplin in particular. And what you can do is you can stand distances away from the site and it gives you a decibel reading. Other licensing officers or EHO officers we work with tell us that the apps on the iPhone are as accurate as special listening devices. I'm sure EHO can comment on that. But what we happily do is what we've done elsewhere is we've been told which app to download. We've been told how often the decibel management should be measured, and we record the measurements in a sound management book. And that's what we will do here.
That's fine. Okay, I think we're going slightly off the point here because it's only the verbal noise up until 9 o'clock that we actually need to consider. Will the bar being present increase noise to an I can't think of the word now, unacceptable level? That's the word, right? Okay, so back to Peter. Anything further?
So I think ultimately, obviously, with this application being for the use of an external bar now till 9 p.m.
Yep.
If we have any complaints regarding indoors, or if we're having any complaints with regards to customers causing antisocial behaviour after the bar is closed, that will ultimately be dealt with by a review application form and not under this variation application.
Thank you. I think that's a good clarification there. That's not for debate for today. So thank you. Anything further?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. There we are. Any other? Leah, you had your hand up from Environmental Health. Did you wish to say a question? Anybody that has spoken?
I was going to ask some questions regarding the monitoring with the noise app, but I think, as you said, it's probably not as relevant to this application as the wider. So it's probably for discussion at another time.
Yeah, if you feel that the noise at the bar that we're discussing today will increase to such a level, or do you think that the noise that residents are experiencing is probably not anything to do with the bar?
I would remind committee of the representation I made regarding the noise from patrons after the live music finished on the 31st of July spilling out into the beer garden. So noise from patrons in the beer garden is currently having an effect.
I understand.
The environmental health officer.
Yeah, I get your concerns.
I don't want to sort of get sort of waylaid by the music. It is patron noise as well as music that is causing a problem at the moment.
And I also have to bring you back to that comes under the license that they've already got.
Yes, and as I say, I think the bar will increase the usage. I think the bar itself will increase the usage outside. That's my point. That's how it relates to this application.
Yeah, and we've had from the applicant a voluntary cut-off point at 9 p.m. Yes. I think that you would agree that a 9 p.m. for residents would reduce noise emanating from that beer garden, and we've had this on a voluntary basis from the applicant today. So I understand you've had issues with the premises, and it's difficult for me when we've got an application to vary. I have to bring you back and just say, and we've heard from you that you do think that there will be increased vocal noise from the bar, and we'll just have to take that from you and consider that in our deliberations. But thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Chair.
Nick Bailey, did you have any questions for anybody?
No, I've got no further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we've gone through the statutory bodies. Any objectors now? So I'll come back to Councillor Purcell. Any questions for anybody that has spoken?
No, but I'm very grateful for a chance just to come back and say I very much welcome the 9 p.m. cutoff. I think that the residents will then say, right, they have listened to our concerns and this is a positive action. I'm hoping that the residents are still present in the meeting, because whereas I now, after just a few occasions in this committee, have an understanding of the difference between what's being debated today and a review, I think it's really important that the residents understand the difference. And I sympathise with the Environmental Health Officer, and I just need to take this opportunity, rather than me going around and knocking on all the doors of all the residents who commented, I need this opportunity to say to the residents, we, on your behalf, are pleased to accept the 9 p.m. cutoff. If there are continual problems with noise, to continue to report. And Leah, from the Environmental Health Officer, will then proceed, if necessary, to a review of the licence. And if somebody, Madam Chair, or Leah, or Neil, anybody could explain just at this moment to the residents the difference between what we're doing now and a review in layman's terms, I think that would calm a lot of people's fears. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
You've just jumped the gun slightly, Councillor, but that's no problem, because I come back to the same people who have spoken before to allow them to sum up. So I do believe that we will get that in the summing up. So I'll come back to Neil Chappell. Having listened to Councillor Purcell's request, could you include that in your summing up?
Yeah, I don't do a summing up as part of this.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm following the protocol.
However, I think, you know, when we have a new application in or a variation application in, it's very different to the review of a license. So a new application is quite straightforward. It's a new application. Everything is on the table for consideration. On a variation application, then we can only consider the actual parts that have been applied for as part of the variation. The existing license, as it currently stands, is not up for grabs. It's not carte blanche for a whole host of conditions to be attached to the license. They can only be attached to the license where it's relevant to the application. Now, a review application, that can be submitted by any of the responsible authorities, or it can be submitted by any other person, which includes obviously the residents or the local member. And the review application is effectively an opportunity for us to look at the license again. And then everything is up for grabs as part of a review. You are looking at the license in its entirety. And a review will always come about because a premises is causing problems. There are concerns at the premises, and there are actions available then at that point to put additional conditions on the license, to remove licensable activities from the license. You can insert conditions such as the live music and recorded music not being permitted, so that exemption that's there currently can be removed. Ultimately, you can remove the DPS, or indeed you can revoke the license completely at the review hearing. So we're not in a review hearing today, as I've said numerous times. This is only looking at the minor alterations to inside and the introduction of this bar outside, which has now been limited to 9 o'clock. All the other issues that are currently being experienced and being investigated and working with the premises are for another day. There is another process to go through, and we may or may not get to that point in the future, depending on how things progress from here on in.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that. Mr. Mallock, do you have anything further that you wish to add to this report?
Nothing further for me, Chair.
No, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to open it up to members of the committee now to ask if there are any questions that you wish to ask of any of the speakers this morning. So Councillor Prothero and, gosh, I've missed it.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair. No,
Miller as well. Councillor Miller.
I've got no questions, Chair. I did have a couple, but they've been addressed.
Yeah, sometimes that happens, Councillor. During the debate, your questions are answered. Yeah.
I was going to ask Mr. Chappell as well for clarity on what he's just said, but he, as always, has put it very eloquently and made a very good point.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And Councillor Miller, do you have any questions or comments to make?
Just one question, Chair, to Mr. Chappell, if you would.
Of course.
From what I understand of what you were saying, the voluntary changes to the licence, we would not be able to enforce.
So in relation to the voluntary conditions, any conditions that are offered voluntarily as part of this process can be enforced and will be applied to the licence. The ones that will not be able to be enforced are any conditions relating to live and recorded music, which is as part of the exemptions offered by the Live Music Act and the Licensing Act 2003 Deregulation of Entertainment order. So they can only be attached. Conditions relating to music then can only be attached by way of a review. That's right.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Anything else, Councillor Miller? No?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Oh, okay, that's fine then. Okay, now we have heard from all parties to speak here. The only other question I have is, of our legal representative, Gavin White, do you have anything that you wish to question from any of the speakers?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Right. Having listened to all the representations and we've given a lot of airtime to this morning, and I hope the residents can feel that there is this willingness to be open about our decisions, and listening to Mr. Chappell in that we have to hone in on what is actually being applied for today. I would ask that everybody other than members of the committee and Nadine and our licensing officer now leave the meeting there so that we can deliberate and come to our decision. So thank you everybody this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chairman, can you just how does the decision of the committee?
Mr. Chappell will communicate that decision.
Okay. Thank you very much.
When we've made our decision. Mr. Chappell is usually hot foot on the phone to any applicants just to let them know what's happening, and that's the way you'll get to know. Is that okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for attending, everyone.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Okay.